Hi everybody, my name is Lisa, and in this hour we're going to be having a reading class, English reading class here on Verbling. So if you have already made a reservation for this class, you can go ahead and get that reservation and use your ticket to come into the Google Hangouts. I have already posted the link in the Verbling chat, so you can open it up on the Google document, and I see that lots of people have already been coming to start reading the article. I'm going to post it there again, right there. So you can open it up and join me here in the Google Hangouts so that we can start reading along together. So if you want to practice your reading, then just go ahead and use your reservation if you had one, or you can join the class now using one ticket. In order to get tickets, you can go to, let me give you the link here. It's get tickets, and they tell you how you can get tickets for free to try out Verbling. If you know you already like using Verbling and you're ready to be a member, it costs $45 per month, and you can join as many classes as you would like. So a lot of people are using Verbling to help them prepare for tests, or also just in general is a good way to have lots of different types of classes that will give you opportunities to speak, to read, to listen to other people, to ask questions, to participate in these classes. So Verbling does have classes. We try to have classes 24 hours a day, 7 days per week. We have lots of different teachers from around the world. They're all native English speakers. We also have Spanish classes with native Spanish speakers from countries like Spain. And we do reading classes, listening classes, grammar classes, pronunciation. I mostly do reading, speaking, some listening, mostly because I think I incorporate all of those things. I don't necessarily have grammar classes or vocabulary classes because I get more into just real life talking and reading real things, and through that comes out the vocabulary and the grammar. Okay, so that's how I prefer to do things. So yeah, so if you guys are joining me, thank you for coming into class. Probably you have already clicked on the link, but I'm going to put it in the Verbling chat one more time. That is opening up an article that I got from the New York Times, and we're going to read that article today. It's pretty long, so I'm going to do it a little bit differently today. I was thinking, well, we're just going to read through it. I'm going to read a paragraph, so when I'm reading, that is an opportunity for you to listen and hear how I am pronouncing the words, and also to just see if you can understand and keep up with the flow of how I'm speaking. I'm not going to speak very quickly. I'm going to just talk normally like this. And instead of going over the vocabulary each paragraph, I want to read it through just one time first and then go back and talk about some of the things that you guys want to understand better in the article, instead of going through each paragraph, just because I don't think we'll have time to do that today. I think once we read the whole article, it will make a lot of sense, and then we can go back and go over some of the words that were maybe new for people that you didn't understand. So that way I think we'll have time to finish the whole article. So let me put it up here in the screen share. Just say hi to everybody. Hi there, Adrian. How are you? Hi,
Hi,
Adrian.
how are you?
Good. And hi to Aisha.
Hello,
And
Lisa.
hi, Amparo.
Hi, teacher.
Hi. And Andre's back. He was in my last class with speaking.
Hi
Andre.
again.
Hi again. And Ishmael's back also. Thank you.
Yes, hi.
And Russell, am I saying your name right? Is it Russell?
Russell.
Russell. Okay, Russell.
Yes.
I couldn't hear you in the last class in the end. Were you there still, or did you?
Oh, sorry, it's a problem.
Okay, all
My
right.
computer, yeah.
Okay, I was just wondering if there was a problem on with my headphones or something. I couldn't hear you. Okay. All right, so let me put the article up here in the screen share. And the way we're going to do it, like I said, is I can take the hi everybody off. This is an article, and the title is "When Home is a Campus Parking Lot." So I want to just give you a little bit of background about this article, which will help you understand it a little bit better. This is about a man, who was going to college to get his graduate degree, and he didn't want to, or he didn't want to go into debt. He didn't want to spend a lot of money going to college, so he decided to try living in a van in order to save money. So the link for that, the article, which is in the New York Times, is all the way here at the end, and it gives us, let me click on it here, see if I can get it. It shows a few pictures here. So there's some pictures. If we go to the actual article, here's some pictures of his life while he was living in the van, and we're going to read about it and see what that's like. So during the reading classes, I choose lots of different types of articles because I want you guys to use different types of English. So sometimes they're informational articles, sometimes they're opinions, people's opinions. In this one, it's written by him, this guy named Ken Ilgunas. And so this is a first-person account. He's telling us about this. Sometimes we read it, an author is telling us about somebody else. But in this case, he's writing from his own perspective and telling us his story. Okay? And all right, Aguinaldo joined us. And let's see, is that all? Hi, Aguinaldo. Hi there. Welcome. All right, so I will try to keep an eye on the chat. If you do want me to go over something real quick, you can go ahead and tell me. If there's something, some word that you just don't know and it's making it hard for you to understand the paragraph, let me know and I'll go over it. But otherwise, let's just read through it and then we'll go over some words and talk about it, okay? That way we'll get through it. All right, he says, could I live in a van? Could I live in a van? Question, okay. I looked over the Craigslist ads, took a bus to John's used car dealership in Raleigh, North Carolina, and scanned the rows of sedans, trucks, and SUVs in search of my new home. Okay, Adrian, why don't you start reading for us? You read exactly what I just read. So we're going to actually be reading this article 2 times. Once I'm going to read it, and once you guys are reading it.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, great.
Could I live in a van? I looked over the Craigslist ads, took a bus to John's used car dealership in Raleigh, North Carolina, and scanned the rows of sedans, trucks, and SUVs in search of my new home.
Good. All right. Let's see. I just get that there. All right, and there it was, a giant 1994 Ford Econoline coated with a burgundy sheen. The sun turning its black-tinted windows a blinding white. It looked out of place among the shiny, spotless SUVs, whose bumpers proudly faced away as if exhibiting a juvenile disdain for their ponderous elder. Okay, Aguinaldo. Is your microphone muted, Aguinaldo, perhaps? Because I don't hear you. Do you guys hear him?
No.
No.
Speaking.
Aguinaldo, I think your microphone is muted, so can you unmute it by clicking on the mic? If it's red, it means that it's muted and we can't hear you. And it usually is muted when you come into the Hangout. So you have to unmute the microphone. Okay. He's got it yet. Okay. Aisha, why don't you read it while he figures it out?
Okay. And it was a giant 1994 Ford Econoline Parade with a burgundy sheen, the sun turning its black-painted windows a blinding white. It looked out of place among the shiny, spotless SUVs, whose bumpers proudly faced away, as if exhibiting a juvenile disdain for their ponderous elder.
Yeah. So he's just looking at this old van here. So there's probably some words in there that were confusing, but we'll go over those later. All right. Its distended underbelly hung vulnerably low, so low I wondered if it would scrape its undercarriage when climbing up and over speed bumps. It was big, it was beautiful, and, best of all, it was only $1,500. Okay, Amparo.
It distended, underbelly hung vulnerably low, so low I wondered if they would scrape its undercarriage when climbed up and over speed bumps. It was big, it was beautiful, and, best of all, it was only $1,500.
Yeah. While the ad promised that the van drives great, it had more than enough problems to justify its price tag. One of the two side doors wouldn't open. There were large patches on the windows where the tint had peeled off, and the tires were bald. So bald that later on when I went to buy a part at Sears, a couple of mechanics doubled over in laughter when I asked them if they thought the tires would pass inspection. Okay, Andre?
Okay. While the ad promised that the van drives great, it had more than enough problems to justify its price tag. One of the two side doors wouldn't open. There were large patches on the window where the tint had peeled off, and the tires were bald. So bald that later on, when I went to buy a part at Sears, a couple of mechanics doubled over in laughter when I asked them if they thought the tires would pass inspection.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take it, I told John anyway, unable to hold back my grin. Despite its deformities, it was love at first sight. I had been accepted into Duke's graduate liberal studies program, but I couldn't afford it. I had just paid off my $32,000 undergraduate debt. I was nearly broke, and the prospect of taking out loans was unthinkable. Going back into debt made about as much sense as running out of a burning building just to run into another. Okay, Ismail?
I'll take it, I told John anyway, unable to hold back my grin. Despite its deformities, it was love at first sight. I had been accepted into Duke's graduate liberal studies program, but I couldn't afford it. I had just paid off my $32,000 undergraduate debt. I was nearly broke, and the prospect of taking out loans was unthinkable. Going back into debt made about as much sense as running out of a burning building just to run into another.
Mm-hmm. Today, the cost of higher education is ridiculous. Average tuition at a public university in-state is $8,655. At a private, it's $29,056. My program would cost in total a reasonable $11,000 after grant aid. But it's not just tuition that puts students into debt. It's room and board. Okay, Russell?
Okay. Today, the cost of higher education is ridiculous. Average tuition at a public university in state is $8,655. At a private it is 29,000 or 56 dollar. My program would cost a total reasonable $11,000 after a great aid. But it is not just tuition that put a student into debt, it is room and board.
Yeah. So not just the tuition, which is what you pay to go to the college, the specific college, but you also have to pay room and board, which is basically where you live and what you eat. Okay. At Duke, that's a university, pretty well known. At Duke, where rates are similar to universities across the country, a non-air-conditioned dorm with 2 roommates costs $5,464 an academic year. The cheapest meal plan for freshmen is a ghastly $5,540 or $27 a day. When I added up the costs of tuition, books, transportation, food, housing, not to mention car insurance, utilities, and dare I say, a date, I felt hopeless. I had only $4,000 to my name and no possessions except a backpack full of camping gear. But as desperate as I was determined to go back to school. Okay. Aguinaldo, did you get your microphone working? You want to read that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, great. Awesome.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Now I'm in live.
Yay.
At Duke, where rates are similar to universities across the world, a non-air-conditioned dorm with 2 roommates cost $5,465 an academic year. The cheapest meal plan for freshmen is a ghastly $5,540 or $75 a day. When I add up the cost of tuition, books, transportation, food, housing, not to mention care, insurance, utilities, and, dare I say, a date, I felt hopeless. I had only $4,000 to my name and no possessions except a backpack full of camping gear. But as desperate as I was determined to go back to the school.
Yes. Okay, so he was determined to go back to school, which brought me back to, could I live in a van? The van, let me put, van dwelling, that means van living, the van dwelling lifestyle, I figured, would eliminate many of the costs. For internet and electricity, I'd use the library. For showers, I'd buy a cheap campus gym membership. For food, I'd cook my own meals. For rent, well, I wouldn't have any rent. For dates, well, I probably wouldn't have any of them either. Okay, Adrian.
Which brought me back to, could I live in a van? The van-dwelling lifestyle, I figured, would eliminate many of the costs. For internet and electricity, I'd use the library. For showers, I'd buy a cheap campus gym membership. For food, I'd cook my own meals. For rent, well, I wouldn't have any rent. For dates, well, I probably wouldn't have any of them either.
Yeah. So everybody knows that a date is going out with a girl, having somebody to go out with. So he's not too hopeful about that either. All right, 7.5 years before, when I had enrolled at the University at Buffalo as an undergraduate, I wasn't the sort of person who would have done something as bold and weird and possibly illegal as secretly living in a big creepy van on a college campus. But something had changed on my journey to get out of debt. Okay, Aisha?
7.5 years before, when I had enrolled at the University at Buffalo as an undergraduate, I wasn't the sort of person who would have done something as bold and weird and possibly illegal, as secretly living in a big creepy van on a college campus. But something had changed on my journey to get out of there.
Yes. Along with owing $32,000, I'd graduated with an unmarketable degree in history and English. Naturally, I struggled to find work and wound up taking a $9 an hour job as a tour guide and cook at a remote truck stop called Coldfoot in Alaska's Arctic. But while I took the job out of desperation, I'd accidentally placed myself in a near ideal situation to pay off my debt. Okay, Amparo.
Along with owing $32,000, I graduated with an unmarketable degree in history and English. Naturally, I struggled to find work and wound up taking a $9 an hour job as a tour guide and cook at a remote truck stop called Coldfoot in Alaska's Arctic. But while I took the job out of desperation, I'd accidentally placed myself in a near ideal situation to pay off my debt.
Mm-hmm. In Coldfoot, the nearest store was 250 miles away, eliminating all temptations to buy stuff. There was no cell phone reception, making a phone plan unnecessary, and workers got free room and board, no food, rent, or utility costs. After a year, I had paid off $18,000. A year later, I got a better-paying seasonal job with the Park Service. After 2.5 years of work, I was debt-free. Okay, Andre.
In Coldfoot, the nearest store was 250 miles away, eliminating all temptation to buy stuff. There was no cell phone reception, making a phone plan unnecessary, and workers got free room and board. No food, rent, or utility costs. After a year, I had paid off $18,000. A year later, I got a better-paying seasonal job with the Park Service. After 2.5 years of work, I was debt-free.
Mm-hmm. But my journey wasn't just a financial awakening. I had learned about subsistence living in Arctic villages and worked with a 74-year-old maintenance man who lived in his 1980 Chevy Suburban year-round. I began to bring into question what passed for normal down in the lower 48, especially when it often led to a lifetime of work, bills, and Bed Bath & Beyond purchases. Out of debt, I felt for the first time that my life was my own and that I could do whatever I wished with it. Okay, Ishmael.
But my journey wasn't just a financial awakening. I had learned about subsistence living in Arctic villages and worked with a 74-year-old maintenance man who lived in his 1980 Chevy Suburban year-round. I began to bring into question what passed for normal down in the lower 48, especially when it often led to a lifetime of work, bills, and Bed and Beyond purchases. Out of that, I felt for the first time that my life was my own and that I could do whatever I wished with it.
Mm-hmm. And more than anything, I wished to use this freedom to continue the liberal arts education that had put me into so much debt. While the cost of my education had chained my ankles to the steel balls of debt, the liberal arts had freed some other part of me. Between a Thoruvian van-dwelling experiment and studying the great thinkers, I thought Duke would help me become a better person. Living in a van wouldn't just be a way for me to afford school, it would be an adventure. It would be my Walden on wheels. Okay. All right. Russell, you have a
Okay.
phone call?
Okay. Sorry, just a minute.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Do you want to get that, Russell? How about we go to Adrian and then you come back? Okay, go ahead, Adrian.
And more than anything, I wished to use this freedom to continue the liberal arts education that had put me into so much debt, while the cost of my education had chained my ankles to the steel balls of debt. The liberal arts had freed some other part of me. Between a Thoruvian, van-dwelling experiment and studying the great thinkers, I thought Duke would help me become a better person. Living in a van wouldn't just be a way for me to afford school. It would be an adventure. It would be my Walden on wheels.
Mm-hmm. Could I live in a van? I asked myself one last time. Why the hell not? The spring semester would start in just a couple of days, so I spent a day making the van as comfortable as I could. I removed the 2 middle pilot seats to create living space, brought in a plastic storage container to hold my possessions, neatly folded all my clothes into my suitcase, and bought a big black cloth to hang behind my driver and passenger seats so that no one could see me inside. Okay, Aisha.
Could I live in a van? I asked myself one last time. What the hell not? What the hell not? The spring semester would start in just a couple of days, so I spent a day making a van as comfortable as I could. I removed the 2 middle pilot seats to create living space, brought in a plastic storage container to hold my possessions, then folded all my clothes into my suitcase, and brought a big black cloth to hang behind my driver and passenger seats so that no one could see me inside.
I knew I had the personality for van dwelling. I'd developed a comfort with tight quarters, a sixth sense for cheapness, and a tolerance for squalor that was, I hate to brag, unequaled. I had the physical constitution for it, too. I was blessed with a high tolerance for cold temperatures, practically no sense of smell, and a bladder, I hate to brag, the size of a football. He says, I hate to brag. Okay, Amparo.
I knew I had the personality for van dwelling. I've developed comfort with tight quarters, a sixth sense for cheapness, and a tolerance for squalor that was, I hate to brag, unequal. I had the physical constitution for it, too. I was blessed with a high tolerance for cold temperatures, practically no sense of smell, and a bladder, I hate to brag, the size of a football.
Yeah. So if he has a large bladder, that means he doesn't have to get out of bed in the middle of the night to go pee. So I hate to brag. It means I don't want to tell you how great that is, but it's true. But the first few weeks didn't match up with my romantic vision of a Walden-esque life of ancient texts and quiet solitude. I was assigned to the mill lot, a parking lot in the middle of a busy shopping district, a mile from campus in the heart of Durham, a city in North Carolina. I parked in between a college bar and an apartment building within eyeshot of office windows where men and women in business attire, I worried, might discover me. Okay, Andre.
But the first few weeks didn't match up with my romantic vision of a Walden-esque life, of ancient texts and quiet solitude. I was assigned to the mill lot, a parking lot in the middle of a busy shopping district, a mile from campus, in the heart of Durham. I parked in between a college bar and an apartment building within eyeshot of office windows where men and women in business attire I worried might discover me.
Yeah. Okay. Eye shot. Within eye shot just means somebody can see you within eye shot. Although the lot was rarely visited, I was constantly paranoid about getting discovered because I didn't know what Duke would say if it learned of my experiment. I was determined to keep the van a secret. I wouldn't tell anyone, and to ensure stealth, as van dwellers call it, okay, see the Yahoo message board van dwellers. I'm going to just take that out. Morning, I lifted up the blinds and looked out the windows to make sure no one saw me leave the van, and I didn't re-enter until late at night. Whenever the subject of my home came up in conversations with fellow students, I lied my pants off. Okay, Ismail.
Although the lot was rarely visited, I was constantly paranoid about getting discovered, because I didn't know what Duke would say if it learned of my experiment. I was determined to keep the van a secret. I wouldn't tell anyone, and to ensure stealth, as van dwellers call it, see the Yahoo message board, van dwellers. Each morning I lifted up the blinds and looked out the windows to make sure no one saw me leave the van, and I didn't re-enter until late at night. Whenever the subject of my home came up in conversation with fellow students, I lit my pants off.
Yeah, I lied. So he lied to people about it. My pants off just means he lied a lot. Just another way. I lied my pants off. My secret was making it impossible to make friends. I was sleeping in temperatures as low as 10 degrees, and as a bachelor living in tight quarters, I was constantly inhaling air riddled with strange odors. Worst of all, I felt a terrible loneliness settle deep into me. Okay, Russell, are you back? You might have to. There you go. Good.
Okay, my secret was making it possible to make friends. I was sleeping in a temperature as low as 10 degrees, and as a bachelor living in tight quarters, I was constantly
Yeah.
constantly
Yes.
inhaling air riddled with the string odors. Worst of all, I feel trouble, loneliness, loneliness, loneliness settled deep into me.
Yeah, so he was getting lonely. To compensate, so to make up for that loneliness, to try to feel better, I began and talk to myself with unprecedented frequency. My main concern, though, was my dwindling money supply. After my first week of purchases, the van, books, school fees, car insurance, food, and a cell phone bill, I had less than $1,000 left in savings and $2,000 to pay in tuition. I had nothing else to cut back on, so I tried to eat as little as possible. Walking back from the library one night, I spotted a few mangled slices of pizza lying in a box on the lawn. A savage hunger roared in my belly. Has it already come to this? Okay, Adrian?
To compensate, I began to sing and talk to myself with unprecedented frequency. My main concern, though, was my dwindling money supply. After my first week of purchases, the van, books, school fees, car insurance, food, and the cell phone bill, I had less than $1,000 left in savings and $2,000 to pay in tuition. I had nothing else to cut back on, so I tried to eat as little as possible. Walking back from the library one night, I spotted a few mangled slices of pizza lying in a box on the lawn. A savage hunger roared in my belly. Has it already come to this?
My worries were temporarily alleviated when I became a paid study participant for Duke's neuroscience department. Several times a week for $10 an hour, I was zapped by electrodes, pricked by needles, and dazed by pharmaceuticals. Shamelessly, I donated 3 of my 4 primary bodily fluids. Later, I found out about studies that paid $20 an hour to perform cognitive tests inside an MRI. Aisha?
My worries were temporarily alleviated when I became a paid study participant for Duke's neuroscience department. Several times a week for $10 an hour, I was zapped by electrodes, pricked by needles, and dazed by pharmaceuticals. Shamelessly, I donated 3 of my hours' primary body fluids. Later, I found out about studies that pay $20 an hour to perform cognitive tests inside an MRI.
MRI, yeah. Though the van-dwelling lifestyle had its share of hardships, I adapted. On my isobutane backpacking stove, I cooked lavish meals each night, usually some combination of vegetables, noodles, and peanut butter. I had only one pot, so all my meals were stews. Spaghetti stew, rice and bean stew, vegetable stew, with healthy calorie-dense dollops of peanut butter mixed in. Okay, Amparo?
Though the van-dwelling lifestyle had its share of hardships, I adapted. On my isobutane backpacking stove, I cooked lavish meals each night, usually some combination of vegetables, noodles, and peanut butter. I had only one pot, so all my meals were stews. Spaghetti stew, rice and bean stew, vegetable stew, with healthy calorie-dense dollops of peanut butter mixed in. Mixed in.
Mixed in, yeah. For breakfast, I'd have cereal with powdered milk, and for lunch, I'd make sandwiches and carry them to campus. At the gym, I showered, shaved, and brushed my teeth, and filled up large water bottles for cooking. Okay, Andre?
For breakfast, I'd have cereal with powdered milk, and for lunch, I'd make sandwiches and carry them to campus. At the gym, I showered, shaved, and brushed my teeth, and filled up with large water bottles for cooking.
I washed my clothes every few weeks at a laundromat a short walk from my parking space, and I did all of my studying at the campus library, where I used the free Wi-Fi and charged up my electronics. The van offered no protection from the cold, but once I shivered into my thermal underwear and slipped into my sleeping bag, burritoed in my own body heat, I'd fall into a deep and peaceful slumber. Okay, Ismail?
I washed my clothes every few weeks at a laundromat a short walk from my parking space, and I did all of my studying at the campus library, where I used the free Wi-Fi and charged up my electronics. The van offered no protection from the cold, but once I shivered into my thermal underwear and slipped into my sleeping bag, burrowed in my own body heat, I fell into a deep and peaceful slumber.
The van-dwelling lifestyle proved to be as affordable as I'd suspected. I was able to eat for $4.34 a day, and I lived on $103 a week. My finances became even more manageable when I got a part-time job tutoring at an inner-city elementary school. I didn't buy my first meal at a restaurant until more than halfway through the semester. On a week-long trip to a field station for my biodiversity in North Carolina class. Okay, Russell?
Okay, the windowing lifestyle proved to be as affordable as I'd suspect. I was able to eat for $4 34 cent a day, and I lived on $103 a week. My finances became even more manageable when I got a part-time job uh, tutoring at an inner city elementary school. I didn't buy my first meal at a restaurant until more than halfway through the semester, on a week-long trip to a field station for my biodiversity in North California, North Carolina class.
Carolina, yeah. Biodiversity in North Carolina. Yeah, it's a state in the southern part of the United States. The day before I was to go, my mother sent me an email reminding me about my tax return. I'd get a refund. It was a $1,600 golden ticket that Uncle Sam was going to slip into my bank account. I was rich. This was a turning point, I realized. I had financial security for the first time in months. I'm not poor anymore, I thought nostalgically. Adrian?
The day before I was to go, my mother sent me an email reminding me about my tax return. I get a refund. It was a 1,600 golden ticket that Uncle Sam was going to slip into my bank account. I was rich. This was a turning point, I realized. I had financial security for the first time in months. I'm not poor anymore, I thought nostalgically.
Mm-hmm. Knowing that my tax refund was coming, I slackened my Spartan standards. I bought a case of beer. I dined at a restaurant twice, and at the field station I slept in a heated room on a comfortable bed. But treating myself made me feel a strange sense of guilt, as if I'd cut some corner I promised myself I wouldn't cut. During my third night at the station, beleaguered with self-reproach, I dragged my sleeping bag outside and slept on the pavement under the stars. Aisha?
Knowing that my tax refund was coming, I slacked my Spartan standards. I brought a case of beer. I dined at a restaurant twice, and at the field station I slept in a heated room on a comfortable bed. But treating myself made me feel a strange sense of guilt, as if I'd cut some corner I promised myself I wouldn't cut. During my third night at the station, beleaguered with self-reproach, I dragged my sleeping bag outside and slept on the pavement under the stars.
Yeah. I didn't need these things. The beer, the food, or even the bed. I didn't even really want them. I was buying stuff simply because I could afford it. If you put a man in a country club, he'll feel the need for a yacht. But if you drop him in the wilderness, his desires will be only those essential to his survival. I had decided not to take out loans for graduate school, in part because I knew that if I allowed myself access to easy money, I'd again fall victim to the consumerist trap. Okay, Amparo?
I didn't need these things, the beer, the food, or even the bed. I didn't even really want it. I was buying stuff simply because I could afford it. If you put a man in a country club, he'll feel the need for a yacht. But if you drop him in the wilderness, his desires will be only those essential to his survival. I had decided not to take out loans for graduate school, in part because I knew that if I allowed myself access to easy money, I'd again fall victim to the consumerist trap.
Mm-hmm. I'd be indiscreet with my money. I'd begin to pay for and rely on things I thought I needed but didn't. I'd lose perspective. I didn't want to once again be swallowed whole by the dominant culture. accepting its norms and values and desires as my own. Okay, Andre?
I'd be indiscreet with my money. I'd begin to pay for and rely on things I thought I needed but didn't. I'd lose perspective. I didn't want to once again to be swallowed whole by the dominant culture, accepting its norms and values and desires as my own.
Mm-hmm. I knew what I was missing in my life. It wasn't things. It wasn't heat, plumbing, an iPhone, or a plasma screen TV. It was people. It was a community. It was a meaningful role to play in society. And these were things, as much as I wanted them, that I knew I could temporarily do without. Ismail?
I knew what I was missing in my life. It wasn't things. It wasn't heat, plumbing, an iPhone, or a plasma screen TV. It was people. It was a community. It was a meaningful role to play in society. And these were things, as much as I wanted them, that I knew I could temporarily do without.
When not at work or in class, I would lie in bed for hours, reading, thinking, doing nothing, enjoying the solitude, staring at the ceiling, idly musing, unworried about feeling industrious or useful. I pondered everything from the Milky Way to the fallen crumb on my floor. Russell?
Okay. When not at work or in class, I would lie in bed for hours, reading, thinking, doing nothing, enjoying the solitude, starting at the ceiling, idly music, unworried about feeling industrious or useful. I pondered everything from the Milky Way to the fallen crumb on my floor.
Oh, and the liberal arts. Studying liberal arts after years spent working at far-flung camps that didn't have as much as a stack of used idle fare for a famished soul. I read Rousseau and Diogenes and Thoreau, and my liberal arts education, as well as the education of living in a van, came together like two rivers meeting at a confluence and flowing together as one. Adrian? Adrian, is your microphone on?
Yes, sorry, I can't see the text. I saw the photos, the pictures of people. I click on Liza Biscup, but nothing happens. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, and I'm not sure why you're not seeing it.
I click on another icon and come back on your icon, and nothing happens. So give me the text.
I don't see it as well.
Yeah, just
Andrei Kostyuchenko doesn't.
Okay, let me try it again here. Let's see. I don't know what changed.
It's okay for me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah?
Oh, and the liberal arts.
Yeah.
Studying liberal arts. After years spent working at far-flung camps that didn't have as much as a stack of used books, felt like vital fare for a famished soul. Famished soul. I read Rousseau and Diogenes and Thoreau, and my liberal arts education, as well as the education of living in a van, came together like two rivers meeting at a confluence and flowing together as one.
Yep. After the semester, I went back to Alaska for the summer, where I worked and filled up my depleted bank account. As the fall approached, I looked up rates of apartments around Duke. But I began to think of how my van had begun to feel less like an experiment and more like a real home. I remembered the half-dozen dogwood trees that shadowed my parking spot and bore branches heavy with thick, lustrous white flowers, and how they buzzed with a million bumblebees and smelled of a woman's hair. I'd remember how, on mornings, I'd awake to a medley of birdsong so loud and cheery you'd think my little hermitage was tucked away in a copse of trees at Walden Pond.
After the semester, I went back to Alaska for the summer, where I worked and filled up my depleted bank account. As the fall approached, I looked up rates of apartments around Duke, but I began to think of how my van had begun to feel less like an experiment and more like a real home. I remembered the half-dozen dogwood trees that shadowed my parking spot and bore branches heavy with thick, lustrous white flowers, and how they buzzed with a million bumblebees and smelled of a woman's hair. I remember how on mornings I'd awake to a meter of birdsong so loud and cheery you'd think my little hermitage was tucked away in a copse of trees at Walden Pond.
Me, the Rose Cabin wasn't just a home, it was the reimagining of a life. It was the conviction that we can turn the wildest figments of our imagination into something real. And I knew that whether I'd come to live in a home on wheels or in one fastened to the ground, I'd in some sense be a van dweller for life. Okay, Amparo?
To me, the Rose Cabin wasn't just a home. It was the reimagining of a life. It was the conviction that we can turn the wildest figment of our imagination into something real. And I knew that whether I come to live in a home on wheels or in one fastened to the ground, I'd in some sense be a van dweller for life.
That fall semester I asked myself, could I live in a van? Could I not? That's the end of that. Okay. All right. So we have about 5 minutes left or so. So does anybody have any questions? I know there were lots of words in the article that maybe were new to you. I was trying to put some definitions and things, explanations in the Verbling chat as we were going. But does anybody have something they want me to explain for sure? Or did you mostly understand it? Okay. All right. What do you guys think about it? Could you live in a van? Russell, do you think you could live in a van?
No, I can't. This is crazy. I can't.
Yeah, that's pretty small. I mean, I'll put on the picture here. This is like his van here, so you can see right there that it's not super tiny. The wrong thing. It's not. But of course, it's not very big either. So he definitely had a very small space. Ishmael, would you ever consider living in a van to save money?
No, Lisa, I can not live in a van.
Yeah, it would be hard.
It
Andre,
is very difficult for me.
yeah. Would you feel claustrophobic? Some people feel claustrophobic, like it's just too small of a space. A claustrophobic person is somebody who needs more space, more air, room. So
I'm not claustrophobic, but I couldn't sleep in cold weather
yeah,
outside.
that would be crazy, huh?
I think.
Yeah, Andre.
Okay, go on.
No, I was just going to say the van doesn't have any insulation. You know, like a house has insulation to help keep you warm, but the van doesn't. So it was probably really cold. What were you going to say, Andre?
I think we all can adapt to conditions, but you have to have a strong will to survive at first.
Yes, and of course he had a very strong goal, and he also knew it was temporary. He knew that he didn't really have to do it, He wanted to do it for a certain reason to save money, but it wasn't going to be for the rest of his life. You know, it was just for a short time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amparo, what do you think of his experiment?
It's a little crazy. Fortunately, here we don't have a space to live in a university. Everyone is it's living in her house, or you have to look for an apartment for yourself if you live in a province.
Yeah.
But nobody live in the university. It's just there are now one private university
Uh-huh.
but it in that university is so expensive, so I suppose that they have enough money to pay.
If you have enough money to go there, you have enough money
Yeah,
to
to live,
Yeah.
pay for the rent. Yeah.
Yeah. Aisha, when you were in the university, did you know people who were trying to save money by living really cheaply?
Not really.
No?
Not cheap as him, but
Yeah.
yeah, people try to save money in different ways. But I think
Ways, yeah.
in his situation, the determination was the key
Yeah.
because he wanted to save money and maybe he need to, so he was able to live in the van. But
Right.
it's not everyone's case.
Yeah, there is a thing also that's popular in the United States in some areas. It's not just living in vans, but people are making tiny, what they call tiny homes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, tiny homes. They have some TV shows about them and stuff, and some people build them and they actually live in them, or some people travel with them and go live like out in nature for a little while. So it's an interesting idea to see, because Americans are obviously known to build things sometimes too big, and it's not necessary. So some Americans are trying to find a balance between what is nice and where you can live in. It's not too expensive or too much.
Yeah, I saw on one of those TV shows
Yeah.
one woman who was living in a house.
Yeah.
The house doesn't have a window.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And when I saw things like that, I became claustrophobic. So
Yeah.
I wasn't able to watch the whole show.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if you search, like I'm just searching tiny homes, you'll see lots of different, some of them are very nice, so it doesn't necessarily mean they're cheap, but they're trying to save space, but also have a nice place to live. So, Adrian, I'll hear from you last before we finish. What did you think about this young man's experiment?
Well, it's a good experience for him and for us.
Yeah.
I'd like to live in a van with the condition that the van has 20 meters long and 3 meters high, and with heat, so it would be marvelous.
Yeah.
And I could move out
Right.
often.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is especially interesting for guys, because in the United States it's very common for men to have what they call the man cave. So even in their house they have their room where they like to just go to their room. So sometimes men are building these small tiny homes as places to get away and to kind of like do their own thing, you know.
Men are children, always children.
Yes. Okay, well, great. Thanks for coming to class, you guys, and for reading. We got through the whole article, and we got to hear a little bit about what you guys thought of it, so I hope you enjoyed it. So,
Yes.
something different.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
take
teacher.
care, everybody.
See you. Take care.
Bye bye.